Have you ever wondered how two countries that were on the brink of a devastating war suddenly began talking about peace? Just a few weeks ago, the world was preparing for what many experts feared could become the biggest conflict in the Middle East in decades. The United States and Iran were exchanging threats. Military forces were on high alert. Oil prices were rising. Global markets were becoming nervous. Many analysts even warned that if the fighting continued, it could pull several countries into a much larger regional war. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of more missiles, there were negotiations. Instead of military escalation, there were diplomatic meetings. And surprisingly, one of those important meetings took place in Islamabad, Pakistan. Today, we are going to understand what really happened between the United States and Iran, why Islamabad became such an important location, and what the Memorandum of Understanding, also known as the MoU, actually contains. More importantly, we will discuss why this agreement could reshape the future of the Middle East and even affect the global economy. Before we begin, if you enjoy easy-to-understand explanations on geopolitics and international affairs, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because we bring complex global events to you in the simplest possible way. Now let's begin. To understand the importance of the Islamabad MoU, we first need to understand why the United States and Iran were moving toward another dangerous confrontation. The relationship between these two countries has been hostile for more than 4 decades. Everything changed after the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Before that revolution, Iran and the United States were close allies. But after the revolution, the new Iranian government adopted a strong anti-American foreign policy. Since then, both countries have accused each other of supporting terrorism, destabilizing the Middle East, and threatening international security. Over the years, the tensions continued to grow. The United States imposed heavy economic sanctions on Iran. Iran continued expanding its missile capabilities and developed an advanced nuclear program, which Washington and its allies viewed with deep suspicion. Then came a series of attacks, proxy conflicts, cyber operations, and targeted military actions that kept pushing both countries closer to direct confrontation. The situation became even more dangerous after several recent military incidents involving American forces and Iranian-backed groups across the Middle East. Each side blamed the other for escalating the conflict. The United States argued that Iran was supporting armed groups attacking American interests. Iran insisted that it was defending itself against foreign pressure and military threats. For several days, the international community feared that one wrong decision could trigger a full-scale regional war. Countries around the world became concerned because a war between the United States and Iran would not remain limited to just these two nations. It could affect global oil supplies. It could disrupt shipping routes through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important energy corridors in the world. It could increase fuel prices across Asia, Europe, and even North America. It could also involve several regional powers, making the conflict much larger and far more difficult to control. That is why many governments quietly encourage both sides to return to diplomacy instead of continuing military escalation. This is where Islamabad entered the picture. Pakistan has maintained diplomatic relations with both the United States and Iran for many years. It shares a long border with Iran while also maintaining important strategic ties with Washington. Because of these balanced relationships, Pakistan was seen as a country that could provide a neutral environment for sensitive discussions. Behind closed doors, diplomats and officials from both sides began exploring ways to reduce tensions. These discussions eventually resulted in what became known as the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding. It is important to understand that a Memorandum of Understanding is not the same as a final peace treaty. Instead, it is a political framework. It outlines what both sides are willing to discuss, what commitments they are prepared to consider, and how future negotiations should move forward. Think of it as the foundation for building trust after months of rising tensions. The Islamabad MoU does not solve every disagreement between the United States and Iran overnight. However, it creates a structured path toward reducing conflict and avoiding another military crisis. This alone makes the agreement highly significant. In the next part of this video, we will examine the most important points of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding one by one in simple English. We will discuss what each point means, who benefits the most, and why these provisions could change the strategic balance in the Middle East for years to come. Now comes the most important question. What exactly is written in the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, and why has it attracted so much international attention? Although the complete details have not been officially confirmed by every party involved, reports suggest that the MoU contains several major commitments designed to reduce tensions and create a roadmap for future negotiations. Let us go through the most important points one by one. The first point focuses on ending military escalation. Both sides agreed to avoid actions that could trigger another direct military confrontation. This means reducing attacks, avoiding unnecessary provocations, and giving diplomacy a chance to work before resorting to force. This is perhaps the most important part of the entire agreement, because even a single military mistake could quickly push both countries back toward war. The second point involves direct communication. One of the biggest problems during international crises is the lack of communication. Misunderstandings can easily lead to conflict. The MoU reportedly encourages direct diplomatic channels between American and Iranian officials so that disagreements can be discussed before they become military crises. The third point relates to the Iranian nuclear program. For years, the United States has demanded stronger guarantees that Iran's nuclear activities remain peaceful. According to reports, Iran expressed its willingness to cooperate with international monitoring mechanisms under mutually agreed conditions. In return, Iran expects recognition of its legitimate civilian nuclear rights and greater respect for its sovereignty. This remains one of the most sensitive issues because both sides continue to have significant differences over inspections, enrichment levels, and verification. The fourth point concerns economic sanctions. Iran has suffered under heavy international sanctions for many years. These sanctions have affected trade, investment, banking, inflation, and the daily lives of ordinary Iranian citizens. Reports suggest that the MoU discusses the possibility of gradually easing certain sanctions if Iran fulfills agreed commitments during future negotiations. However, this would happen step by step rather than immediately. The fifth point focuses on maritime security. The Strait of Hormuz carries a significant share of the world's oil exports. Whenever tensions rise in this region, global energy markets react almost instantly. According to the reported framework, both countries recognize the importance of keeping international shipping routes open and secure. If this commitment holds, it could reduce uncertainty in global oil markets and improve confidence among international businesses. The sixth point deals with regional stability. The United States and Iran have supported different groups and allies across the Middle East for many years. These rivalries have fueled conflicts in several countries. The MoU reportedly encourages both sides to reduce actions that could further destabilize the region and instead support diplomatic solutions wherever possible. The seventh point highlights future negotiations. Neither side claims that every disagreement has already been solved. Instead, this agreement creates a process for continuing discussions on security, economic issues, humanitarian concerns, and regional cooperation. In other words, this is not the final destination. It is only the beginning of a much longer diplomatic journey. Now, you may be wondering who benefits the most from this agreement. The answer is not simple. The United States benefits because reducing tensions lowers the risk of another expensive military conflict in the Middle East. Iran benefits because diplomatic progress may eventually lead to economic relief and improved international engagement. Pakistan also gains international recognition for providing a platform where sensitive discussions could take place peacefully. The global economy could benefit as well because greater stability in the Middle East often leads to more predictable energy prices and fewer disruptions to international trade. However, there are also many unanswered questions. Will both countries actually follow these commitments? Will political leaders in Washington and Tehran support long-term negotiations? Will regional allies accept this new diplomatic direction? And perhaps the biggest question of all, can decades of distrust really be overcome through dialogue? History tells us that peace agreements are easy to sign but much harder to implement. Success depends not only on written commitments, but also on political will, mutual confidence, and consistent action over many months or even years. That is why many international observers remain cautiously optimistic. They welcome the agreement, but also recognize that its real test begins after the signatures, not before them. Now, let us look beyond the agreement itself and ask the biggest question of all. What does the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding actually mean for the future of the Middle East and the rest of the world? If this agreement succeeds, it could mark the beginning of a new phase in United States and Iran relations. It does not mean the two countries will suddenly become allies. Their disagreements over regional influence, security, and the nuclear program are far from over. However, it could reduce the chances of another direct military confrontation, which would be a major achievement on its own. For the Middle East, this could bring greater stability. Countries across the region have spent years dealing with conflicts, proxy wars, and political uncertainty. A reduction in tensions between Washington and Tehran could lower the risk of violence spreading across neighboring countries and create more space for diplomacy instead of military action. The impact could also be felt in the global economy. Whenever conflict threatens the Middle East, investors become nervous, oil prices become volatile, and international markets react immediately. If shipping routes remain secure and military tensions continue to decrease, global energy markets could become more stable. This would benefit not only governments but also ordinary people who are affected by rising fuel prices and inflation. There are also important implications for other major powers. China has strong economic ties with Iran and relies heavily on energy imports from the Middle East. A more stable region would support China's long-term economic interests. Russia has maintained close relations with Iran while also competing strategically with the United States in several parts of the world. Moscow will closely watch how this agreement develops because it could influence the regional balance of power. The Gulf Arab states are also paying close attention. Many of them want greater regional stability because conflict threatens trade, investment, tourism, and economic development. At the same time, they will carefully observe whether Iran follows through on any commitments made during the negotiations. Israel is likely to remain cautious. Israeli leaders have consistently argued that Iran's nuclear activities and regional influence pose serious security concerns. Even if diplomacy moves forward, Israel will continue monitoring every stage of the process very carefully. Despite the optimism surrounding the MoU, several challenges remain. Political leadership can change. Governments can adopt different policies. A single military incident or misunderstanding could quickly reverse diplomatic progress. Years of distrust cannot disappear overnight. That is why many experts describe the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding as an opportunity rather than a guarantee. It opens the door to dialogue, but whether both sides walk through that door depends entirely on their future actions. History teaches us an important lesson. Wars usually begin after diplomacy fails. Peace usually begins when countries choose to keep talking, even when they strongly disagree. The Islamabad MoU represents one of those moments where diplomacy has been given another chance. Whether it becomes a historic breakthrough or simply another forgotten document will depend on what happens in the months and years ahead. As global citizens, this story matters to all of us because conflicts between major powers affect energy prices, international trade, financial markets, and global security. Even if we live thousands of kilometers away, the consequences eventually reach every country. Now, I would like to hear your opinion. Do you think this memorandum of understanding can prevent another United States-Iran war, or do you believe the tensions will eventually return? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read many of your comments, and they often inspire future videos. If you found this explanation helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest analysis of global politics and international affairs. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.